Good evening.
Good evening.
There are three major steps or three major periods of life on the spiritual path. The first one is a very pleasant one. The second one is not so pleasant. And the third is pleasant again. The reason that the first one is pleasant is that our thoughts are primarily on changing the conditions of evil, error, discord, inharmony, to the more harmonious conditions. Many of these changes do take place, as so many of us have discovered. We do have a better sense of health. Very often we have a much better sense of supply. Our human relationships straighten themselves out and become much better than they were before. It is safe to say that in this first stage of our spiritual unfoldment, it is quite a joyous thing watching some of the old man die and the new man be born, watching some of the old conditions disappear and new and harmonious ones appear. The second stage is the difficult one. It is probably the longest period and the most difficult one. The reason is that in the second stage you are living in two worlds. You have yourself glimpsed something of the nature of reality. You have yourself glimpsed some of the nature, the unreal nature of the phenomenal world. In other words, you come to a stage where you do not run around looking for an aspirin the moment you have a cold. You do not start looking for medicines the moment this or that happens to you, because these outer conditions no longer have terror for you. You have no fear of them. But unfortunately, your friends are all thinking the way they did before, and they make life pretty miserable by reminding you that you must be practical, and the things you must fear, the things you must protect yourself from, and how unreasonable it is to forgive your enemy, and so forth. You actually find yourself living in two worlds, and you must cater to both of them. There is no way of running away from either one of them. You cannot all of a sudden lose the spiritual ground that you have gained with so much work and study and meditation. On the other hand, there is a law against killing our friends and relatives, so that these must be put up with in some way or other. Not only that, but we have to love them as ourselves. That means that we may sometimes be called on to feed them with medicines and to commiserate with them when we do not feel like it. However, outwardly, we have to be in this world. Outwardly, we have to let them see how loving we are. And we are not in that sense anyhow. As a matter of fact, we are not even patient with it, but we cannot let them see our impatience, because that would not be loving. So it is that we engage in double talk. In business, we use ordinary business language, and at the same time we do not believe it. I went through a period of taking bayonet lessons with Major Biddle, who was very famous for his training of Marines with the bayonet. Of course, with every lunge we were saying, "You filthy Hun, you so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so," and here I was inwardly forgiving my enemies and loving them. It is not easy to live a double life, but you do it. You really do it. It is difficult also because you are not yet firmly grounded into actually believing all the things you know. You do not yet have the full conviction that it is true. Yes, it says so in the books, and yes, so-and-so says so, and yes, I believe it, but. So here you are, holding firmly to something you have not yet completely demonstrated. This really becomes our difficult period. Once we get past the second stage, which might be anywhere from our second to our 22nd year of study, but when we get past that, we are really enjoying life. Because now we are so completely removed from the hates and the fears of this world and the doubts of our principle that we can live the double life without any reaction upon ourselves. It does not touch us anymore to use human language and to speak in the language of the day, and yet in the back of our mind live in the consciousness we have now attained. As a matter of fact, in this third stage is where most is demanded of you. This is where others, with their real problems, begin to seek you out for help. And every problem that is brought to you is just another opportunity for the living of the consciousness that you have attained. And it does not strike you as a problem. Remember, in our first stage, and somewhat in our second, every time we have a problem we say, why did that have to come to me? I have been so serious in my study. I have been so faithful. Now why did this come to me? So we really begin to fight with ourselves. However, in this third stage, we know that it is inevitable that the higher we go, the more problems are going to be presented to us. Only now, they are not all our personal problems. They are mostly the problems of the rest of the world, the friends, the family, the patients, the students. These bring the problems, but they are no longer problems. They are opportunities. Understanding this, you must have periods of conversation with yourself so that you make it clear to yourself that, first of all, if you have temptations that do not seem to yield immediately, that you are going to understand this. No demonstration can rise higher than the consciousness from which it emanates. Then you say, ah, yes, I have God consciousness. Indeed you have, but that is not yet the consciousness that is governing your daily life. Not yet. That is, when you come to the third stage, when you are God-governed. In the first stage, you are hoping for it. In the second stage, you are beginning to see some fruitage in it. But it is only in the third stage where you really become the child of God, an heir, and live by grace. Now let me show you how this works out, so that you will not lose patience with yourself, so that you will understand that you really do have a work ahead of you and not play, and not just a blind faith. I myself am infinite, divine consciousness. Now this is just as true of you as it is of me. So you can repeat this to yourself. I myself am infinite, divine consciousness. However, I still see a lot of the natural man in me. Therefore, I am not wholly governed by my divine consciousness. I am governed partly by the divine consciousness and partly by man whose breath is in his nostrils, partly by the natural man who is not under the law of God. Let us take that statement for a moment. As a human being, you are not under the law of God. You are not under the grace of God. You are not under the protection of God. And therefore, as you start your studies, or your students start their studies, or your child starts studies, remember that in these first months, they are 99% under the carnal mind, the natural man. They are, of course, benefiting by your more advanced consciousness, not theirs. Theirs is not yet sufficiently advanced for them to be benefiting by it. You can notice this. I think this is proof of the whole principle. You will notice some children, let us say children of a beautiful mother or a handsome father or both, and notice what beautiful children they are, or as a general rule are. Now they, in their childhood, reflecting the consciousness of their parents, the beauty of the parents' consciousness, the integrity of the parents' consciousness is reflected in the face and body of the child. Well, remember that the moment that child becomes 16, 17, 18, 19, it begins to live its own life. It begins to manifest its own consciousness. Watch how often that beautiful child becomes the Cinderella. And watch also how many Cinderellas, when they are under their parents' consciousness, become beautiful once they get away from it, once they begin to reflect their own state of consciousness, which sometimes is far more beautiful than their parents. It is in this same way that you can expect your child to be 80% free of children's diseases, of children's delinquencies, of children's accidents, of children's fears, if you are maintaining your spiritual consciousness, living in the realization of one power. Of course, as you know, I have witnessed this for more than 30 years. Children in the homes of metaphysical families. And notice how much more free they are of the world's discords than those who do not have the benefit of metaphysics. If, however, that child does not accept some of these principles during these childhood years, they are very apt to lose the benefit of their parents' consciousness once they are living their own consciousness, once they get out from under that umbrella of the parents' consciousness. But let us get back to you. You are, as a patient or student, you are benefiting by the consciousness of your practitioner or teacher. You are having far less of the world's discords and inharmonies because of your practitioner or teacher, because their consciousness is the law unto your experience. However, remember this, that if you are not yourself learning these principles, getting into the meditation, and developing your own consciousness, then when the master goes away, the comforter is found to be no longer with you. So you see that from being the man of earth, the natural man who is not under the law of God, you are spending the days of your studenthood, your neophyte days. You are improving yourself. You are learning the principles. You are learning to pray aright. You are learning to meditate. You are learning to live in the consciousness of one power. You are learning to live as omnipresence, omnipotence, omniscience. And year by year, there is less of the natural man about you, and more of that mind that was also in Christ Jesus. So it is that you go through all of your student days partly under the law of God, partly under the law of the natural man, partly under the grace of God, partly under the law of the natural man. So when problems come, please remember that this represents that degree of the natural man which you still are, which has not yet been overcome. Do not wonder at it. Do not believe for a moment that a few years of study are transforming you into the Christ, into the risen Master. That is not true. It is only true that you are, in proportion to your studies and meditations, you are manifesting less and less of the natural man, overcoming the natural man, and demonstrating more and more of your divine consciousness. As problems arise, here is the reason that you have not yet overcome fully the natural man. And that part of you which is the natural man is not yet under the law of God. Neither indeed can be. That part of you cannot receive the things of God. As problems come to you, and you remember this, all that you are called upon to do is to remember. Yes, but this natural man is not of God, and is not a power, and is not a presence, is not a reality. And that is the function. That is the purpose of the spiritual life I am leading. To recognize that every time the carnal man raises up his head, that I can say, I know thee who thou art. Get thee behind me. Thou art not of God. Therefore there is no reality in you. There is no spiritual law, no divine grace to support you, to maintain or to sustain you. In other words, the degree in which the Son of God has been raised up in you is what enables you, or is the measure in which you can turn on the carnal mind and its manifestations and nullify it. If you have caught well the principles of impersonalization and nothingization, all of which constituted our 1959 work, so that in the event of these problems coming to you, you do not say, how could that happen to me? I have been reading the books all year, or I have been meditating all year, or all 10 years. That is not what counts. What counts is what degree of Christ is risen in you. What degree of loving your neighbor have you accomplished? What degree of forgiving your enemy? What degree of resisting not evil? What degree of realization of one power? This determines the degree of your freedom from discord, and it determines the nature of your ability to meet the problems quickly and decisively. Never for a moment believe that faith enters into this whatsoever. You may have all the faith in God, and you may have all the faith in the infinite way. And just look around and see where faith has gotten people. It is not a matter of having faith. It is a matter of actually understanding these principles and having the impersonal ability to apply them, and apply them when the chips are down, not merely when everything is going along well, to say there is only one power and evil is impersonal, but the ability when you are faced with that Satan or that condition, then to be able to stand fast and say, aha, this is the nature of the universal belief in two powers. I interrupt myself because right here the temptation comes in to blame yourself for something. And then you are not impersonalizing. You have fallen into the trap. Once you say, I am at fault, or, oh well, I guess I am not a good student. Evidently I do not understand. Others do, but I do not. You have personalized. If you have personalized, be assured you have fallen overboard. You are going to have a struggle. No, be sure that even though you recognize, as Paul did, I do not claim to have fully arrived, I am just not looking at the past. I am looking toward the future and going forward. I am not claiming that I have attained Christhood. I am claiming only that Christhood is my true identity, and that as I come into the realization of my Christhood, in that degree I am God-governed, and there can be no problems, certainly none of my own. Then when temptation comes, the problem, please remember, you are not dealing with any failure on your part. You are dealing with the appearance of a universal claim of two powers. You are dealing with the claim of personalized evil, personalized discord, and it is up to you to put your heel on it. In other words, you are laying the axe at the root of the tree. You are impersonalizing the entire picture. And once you have impersonalized it, the problem has no person in whom or through whom to operate. Every time that you give way to doubt or discouragement, it is because you are personalizing evil. You are personalizing the universal belief in two powers and holding yourself responsible for it. Whereas you may be responsible for being 90 years of age, you are not responsible for being old at 90 years of age. That is a universal claim. In fact, at 70 and at 80, it is a universal claim. And if you are going to accept the universal claim as being personal to you, then you are the one that manifests it. You are the one who must understand that I, in my true identity, am as old as God, because I coexist with God. I have no more beginning than God has a beginning, and I have no more ending than God has an ending. And I know this, and you know this. Ah, yes, we all know it. Until we get a twinge of rheumatism, and then somebody reminds us we are 48 or 52. You see, one of the reasons the Master says, few there be that enter, the spiritual path calls for standing fast on certain principles, and probably the major principle is that of impersonalizing. If you are going to condemn the woman taken in adultery, if you are going to condemn the thief on or off the cross, if you are going to condemn your friend or your neighbor, you have no way to enter, because the secret is impersonalization. We do know that as long as there is a belief in the world of two powers, of good and evil, that people are going to act good and evil. As a matter of fact, we are going to act good and evil. until such time as we actually realize that we have no right to be functioning as human beings. We have no right to have human feelings of good or of evil. We have no right to have a human will. Once you begin to understand the true nature of your identity, then you come into a whole new mode of life. Let us see if we can see just a little of the functioning of that mode of life. Let us take the theme of one of the class nights. I have hidden manna. Now, what is that hidden manna? Well, that hidden manna is my divine consciousness, my Christ consciousness. My Christ consciousness, my spiritual consciousness, my real consciousness, that consciousness which God gave me, which is God, really. That consciousness is my hidden manna, because from this consciousness emanates my life, my prosperity, my friendships, my judgments, my guidance, my art. Everything that pertains to my life emanates from my divine consciousness. Now, up to a certain point, I am not proving this. What I am getting is a combination of good and evil. Some of my life is good and some of it is bad. Some of it is up and some of it is down. Some of it is rich and some of it is poor. Why? Because I am functioning on the level of the belief of good and evil, the natural man that receiveth not the things of God. However, now in our stage we are declaring, but that was in the days of my ignorance, when first of all I thought I was man. Secondly, I thought I had no control over this world, or that I was not at one with God and under the law of God. But now I know my secret name. I am the Son of God. I am heir of God. I am joint heir. The word I makes me so. I will never leave me nor forsake me. I, the Christ, will be with me to the end of the world. Therefore I am spiritual consciousness. I am immortal. I was never born, and I will never die. I live and move and have my being in God, and God in me, for we are one. This conscious awareness that I and my Father are one, I and infinite divine consciousness are one. Divine consciousness is the one that I am. This is my hidden manna. Therefore, this divine consciousness which I am is the substance of all form. It is the substance of my tomorrows, the hours and the minutes of my tomorrows, the dollars of my tomorrows, the food and the relationships, and the clothing and the transportation, and the activity and the success of my tomorrows. I of my own self can be nothing, but the I that I am, which I now recognize to be Christ's selfhood, divine selfhood, God's selfhood, this is my hidden manna. This, you see, deprives me of the privilege of having desires. I have no right to have desires. I must now be a beholder, letting God's grace flow from my consciousness. I have no right to have a will of my own. I am always at the standpoint of being a beholder, bearing witness to God's will being manifest through me. I have no right to know lack or limitation or unhappiness, because I am a beholder, watching the infinite Spirit of God flow forth from me, through me and as me. I am the beholder. I lose the privilege of having fears, of having doubts. I lose the privilege of losing hope, because if I indulge that, all I do is take back my mortal selfhood, the one that is supposed to be dying or already dead. In the degree, then, that I start to live humanly, that I start to have human desires and human will, human ambition, human fears, human doubts, in that degree I am denying my Christhood. I am really crucifying my Christhood. Think of this. I have hidden manna. That hidden manna is the divine consciousness which I am. It is the fullness of the Godhead bodily. In its presence is fulfillment. It can say to me, my peace give I unto you, spiritual peace and harmony and rest and completeness and perfection and guidance and wisdom and direction. This is my hidden manna, because no one in the world, not even my mother, can see it. No one can see my hidden manna. No one can see the divine consciousness which I am, nor can they see my awareness of it, because I do not go out in the street and talk about it. Secretly, sacredly, I realize within myself, thank you, Father, that I have learned that God constitutes my being. This is my hidden manna, the knowledge, the awareness that God constitutes my being. Therefore, infinity is the measure of my demonstration. Immortality is the measure of my life. Nothing less. There is no big or little. There is no great or small. There is no up or down. It is just all. It has to be, because God is the substance of my days, and God is the substance of my nights, and everything flooding into my days and nights is God action, God activity, God substance, God presence, God law. This is my hidden manna, and I can rest and relax in it. In one of my books I have said it is like resting back upon a cloud, floating in a sea of infinity and doing nothing, just floating and taking no thought for tomorrow. Take no thought for your life, what you shall eat, what you shall drink. Float back in that sea of infinity. Swim in it. Live and move and have your being in the sea of infinity, the divine grace, and let it flow. Each moment of every day and night, do those things that are given you to do without anxiety, without fear, without doubt. Why? Because permeating your being is divine wisdom, divine energy, divine love, immortal life, immortal spirit. You have no hidden manna, or rather you have no conscious awareness of your hidden manna, unless you are able to rest back and float in that sea of infinity. When you can do that, it is because you have an awareness that some of the ancient prophets had when they said, "He that is within me is greater than he that is in the world." Or Paul, "I can do all things through Christ, which strengtheneth me." This is the awareness of your hidden manna, the understanding that because God constitutes your being, God is the essence and substance of your life, and that in this presence of your very own consciousness there is rest, quiet, contentment, peace. In quietness and in confidence. Why? I am resting. I know that I have this hidden manna. I know that God constitutes my consciousness. I know that God constitutes my tomorrows. You may break up tomorrow into hours and minutes and seconds, but what is the substance of an hour or a minute or a second? Can you separate time from God? Can you have time somewhere and God somewhere else? Or is God the essence and substance of all the time there is? Well now, if you remove the clocks from your thought, you will soon see that there are no days, hours, or minutes. There is just an infinite and an eternal now. A now that is going on and going on and going on. And it is always being now. It is never being afterward. It is never being before. It is always being now. It is only when you bring the clock back that you divide up infinity into periods called hours, weeks, days, and months. All you have to do is see how many times the calendar has been changed and realize that it may soon be changed again, to know that there is no such thing really in the kingdom of God as a division of time. There is not. Just remove the clocks from your consciousness and see that you are just here, in this space, in this time, and it is always now. You will not even need a clock to tell you when it is time to eat, or to take a bath, or to shave. You will see that you can get along without clocks, and always know that it is now. And each period of our nowness, we have a function to perform. Of course, you recognize the fact that that is not meant to take the clocks out of our human experience, because we still need those as they suffer to be so now, because everything turns on time. But we need not feel the limitations of time in our consciousness, because in our consciousness there is really no time. It is always just now. There must come to each one of us eventually a consciousness that can live by the clock outwardly while being completely free of the clock's domination within our consciousness. And when that happens, we are living in the eternal now. However, God is the substance of our time. God is the substance of our days. God is the substance, the activity, and the law of our nights. And that is why there never can be age. There can only be now. Once we catch this vision, there will not be any more disease, because there cannot be disease in now. Disease is something that takes place in time, and the moment you have eliminated time as a factor of its own, You have eliminated disease and sin. Sin always has to take place today, tomorrow, yesterday, day after tomorrow. But the moment that we give that up and live now, there is no reason and no season for sin. As a matter of fact, I do not think anyone sins now. It is always something we are planning for the future. Or fearing because of the past. God is the substance, the law, and the activity of my consciousness, of my being. This just came to me. Do you know that if we live in the consciousness of now, there really couldn't be sin in our lives? Because while we are thinking of now and living in the now, it would be an impossibility either to think a sin or to commit a sin. A sin really has to be planned. It has to be prepared for. And as we are living in this consciousness of now, certainly we could never consciously plan for sin. This is worth thinking about a good deal. God is the activity of my time, and God is the substance of my tomorrows. This is my hidden manna, and because of this I can relax. Now I am in God's time. Now I am in God's care. Now I am floating back in that sea of spirit, that ocean of contentment. I have felt this often as a cloud around my shoulders, as if I rest right back from the shoulders up in this cloud of spirit, of peace, of rest. This is what is happening. As you dwell in the awareness of your divine consciousness, the natural man of you is dying. Why is it dying? It is only fed by your thoughts. The moment your human life is not in your thoughts, it is dying. The moment your carnal selfhood is not in your thought, it is dying. The moment you live up here, in the conscious awareness of God constituting your being, the more the natural man is being depressed and depressed and depressed until it fades. We sustain the evils, the errors and discords of our lives by thinking about them. In the moment when we no longer think about them, they no longer exist, because they never existed at all outside of our thinking. There is neither good nor evil, but thinking makes it so. And the very moment we stop dwelling in our triumphs and in our failures, they no longer exist. And we find that I live, yet not I. Christ liveth my life. How are you going to demonstrate Christ liveth my life? How are you going to demonstrate that I can do all things through Christ? The first way you have to do is give up that personal word I. I fear, I doubt, I am not able, I do not have the ability, I do not have the time. All these must be given up, and you must remember your hidden manna. The hidden manna is your awareness of this indwelling Christ. As long as you abide in the awareness of your indwelling Christ, the things of this world must lessen and lessen, and lessen until they disappear. The longer you carry around in your thought the fears of this world, the less chance you have of losing them. They must be dropped first. They cannot be dropped psychologically. That has been tried. They cannot be dropped psychologically. You cannot psychologize yourself out of your fears. There is only one way in which you can drop the concerns of this world, and that is to let Christ fill your consciousness. That is, have the constant awareness of this hidden manna. I live, yet not I. Christ liveth my life. My life is in good hands. I can do all things through Christ. I am come that ye might have life, and that ye might have it more abundantly. You cannot be living up there with that and hating or fearing something down here. I am come. The Christ is come to your consciousness that you might have life and that you might have it more abundantly. Ah, but it is your conscious awareness of this that makes it happen. Ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. If you do not abide in this word, you will be as a branch of a tree that is cut off and withers and dies. It is you who must abide in this revelation of your hidden manna. You have to know that you have hidden manna and what it is. Do not have blind faith that it is something or other. It is not a charm. It is not a sacred word. It is the understanding that God is your consciousness. It is the understanding that Christ is your mind. It is the understanding that it is Christ that is the law that operates through you. If you are Chinese and like the word Tao better, I do not blame you. But have a word that to you represents spiritual sonship or divine power. Have some word or some term that denotes spiritual sonship or divine power, and then realize that the I of your being is that. I am that Christ. I am that Tao. I am that Spirit. I am that Son of God. And then rest in that truth. This is your hidden manna. This is the secret you cannot tell the world, because you will be crucified for it as others have been before you. If you are not crucified on a cross, you will be crucified in your soul by being ridiculed, laughed at, misunderstood. However, if you keep this locked up in your consciousness, your demonstration turns the laugh on the other fellow. When they see the practicality of this, the practical nature of this, when they see the harmonious lives that unfold, there is no argument left. Even if they do not believe, there still is no argument left. Be still. Be still about your hidden manna. Let God see your understanding in secret, and be assured you will be rewarded from the housetops. I in the midst of you am mighty, and I am come that you might have life, and that you might have it more abundantly. Rest in this. Abide in this word. You can see why these customs of the human world, the language of the human world, the mode of human demonstration, you can see why it is a very difficult period as you try to hold steadfastly, as you try to maintain this word in your consciousness, as you attempt to abide in this word and let this word abide in you. You can see the difficulty because you pay lip service to the world's conversation and at the same time have to always maintain your own spiritual integrity within and yet not voice it without. Can you see why it is necessary to have these many periods of 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, or minutes for pausing in the midst of the day or night to relax and to remember and to sort of float back in this sea of spirit? Can you see why it is absolutely essential to close your eyes at times to the sense testimony and just get back there and float for a second or two or 3 or 10 and remember, thank you, Father, I in the midst of me is my hidden manna. All of this time you are lifting up the I. You are lifting up the I in you from the personal sense of I to the I that I really am. You are really crucifying that personal sense of I. Keep it up long enough and it will be dead. And there will be nothing left but the I that I am, and with it, my peace and my grace, my wholeness, my completeness, my harmony, my justice, my fairness. All of this while you are crucifying the personal sense of I, and you are lifting up the I that I am, the Christ self. You have to remember often that the Christ self is your true identity. The God self is your true identity. The natural man is that part of you which has been imposed upon you by birth and which you are now overcoming. The degree in which you lift up the I in you, in that degree are you dying daily to the personal sense of I. In the degree that you are taking no thought, but resting in the sea of spirit, in the degree that you are doing this, you are letting Christ live your life, and in each moment of the day you do those things given to you. An understanding student will not believe for a moment that this is the way of do-nothing. It is, in one sense, a way of do-nothing, but in doing nothing it makes you lead an awfully busy life, because the doing nothing is not really a doing nothing, it is a doing nothing of a personal nature, or doing nothing with personal fear, doing nothing with personal doubt, doing nothing that is purely of my will or of my desire. In this sense it is a do-nothing, but otherwise it is a very active existence, because God is fulfilling himself as our individual experience. Think of the meaning of this, will you? God is fulfilling himself, its destiny, as our individual experience. This is not your life or my life to do with as we would like. This is God's life, which God is living in our form. Once you begin to perceive this, you will understand immortality. You cannot understand immortality while you think of your life as being yours, because you know right well that that personal sense of life comes to an end. Therefore, you can have no sense of immortality. There is no way of perpetuating eternally that limited sense of self. It is only as you die daily to that limited sense of self and realize, oh, it is not my life that is eternal, it is the God life which is living itself as my life. Then you will know it cannot die. Then you will know it cannot age. Then you will know eventually it cannot be diseased. The more you realize that this is God life, God consciousness appearing as you lose concern for your own life in the realization that God knows how to maintain and sustain his life, which is mine. This is the hidden manna, knowing your true identity, the ability to rest back. God cannot die, God cannot sin, God cannot be sick. God has no limitation whatsoever, and God liveth my life. Christ is the eternal Son of God. Christ is my life. My life is eternal only because Christ is eternal. Christ was never born, Christ will never die. Christ lives as you, and Christ lives as me, the divine Son of God. Relax, rest back in this truth. Let this be what the Master referred to. I have meat the world knows not of. Let this be your meat that the world knows not of, but which you know. This is your meat, your secret meat, your spiritual meat, the substance of your life, the understanding of your true identity, the understanding of your Christly life, of your Christly mind, of your Christly soul, of your Christly being. Then you say in a minute, what about all the sins I've been guilty of? No, you never were. This is the personal sense, the natural man, which has been the cloak, the mask. Yes, that is it, is it not? Persona, mask. Our personality is a mask that we have been wearing. Strip off the personality, there is no more mask, and we are revealed. Christ is my identity. Thank you.